So imagine this for a second. You wake up in the morning and you reach for your eyeliner. Except this eyeliner is made of lead, the same stuff that can quietly poison your brain. And you smear it all over your eyes, not once, but every single day of your life. Sounds insane, right? But here is the twist. That deadly makeup might have been one of the smartest health inventions in history. It may have literally saved millions of eyes. And it took scientists thousands of years to figure out why. Today, we are talking about one of the most famous beauty looks of all time. Those bold black eyes you see on every statue and painting from ancient Egypt. That is not just a fashion statement, that is a survival tool. And the story behind it is equal parts chemistry, medicine, and a little bit of poison. Here is the world the ancient Egyptians lived in. A blazing desert sun beating down all day. Sand and dust constantly blowing into your face. And flies, so many flies that love landing right on your eyes. And on top of that, the Nile flooded every year, spreading moisture and bacteria across the land and turning the whole region into a breeding ground for eye infections. Eye diseases like conjunctivitis were everywhere. And in a world with no antibiotics and no eye drops, a simple infection could scar your vision or even lead to blindness. So what did they do? They invented something better. That something was called Kohl, the granddaddy of every eyeliner you have ever used. The main ingredient was a dark mineral called galena, which is lead sulfide. Yes, lead. The Egyptians crushed it into a fine powder and mixed it with luxurious things like ground pearls, crushed emeralds, gold leaf, frankincense, and herbs like saffron and fennel. Then they stirred it into oil or animal fat until it became a smooth paste. And they painted it around their eyes in those bold, dramatic lines we all recognize today. On the surface, this looks like pure beauty, but the Egyptians were being practical. Think about what that black ring around the eye actually does. First, it cuts the glare. That dark pigment soaks up the harsh sunlight like sunglasses, before sunglasses even existed. Second, it keeps the flies away, because insects do not love landing on a shiny dark face. Third, it traps the dust, acting like a little shield against the desert grit. And fourth, and this is the part that shocked scientists, it might have been fighting infections from the inside. For a long time, historians assumed the lead was just a cheap pigment. But in 2010, a team of researchers exposed skin cells, the same kind that line your eyes, to the lead compounds found in that ancient makeup. And something incredible happened. The cells went into overdrive and started producing massive amounts of a molecule called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is one of the most important signals in your immune system. It wakes up the cells that hunt down and eat bacteria, and it opens up your blood vessels so those cells can race to the scene faster. And get this, the lead compounds triggered a 240-fold increase in nitric oxide production, 240 times. That is not a small effect. That is a full immune system alarm going off. So here's what that means. When an Egyptian applied that Kohl, tiny amounts of those compounds would seep into the eye. And instead of just looking pretty, they were quietly training the immune system to fight off bacteria before an infection could even start. It was like a primitive antibacterial ointment, thousands of years before anyone knew what bacteria even were. And the Greeks and Romans later used two specific compounds from that makeup, called lauryinite and phosgenite, as actual treatments for eye disease. Researchers even found that those compounds were not just crushed minerals. They were deliberately manufactured by mixing lead oxide with salt and water. The ancient Egyptians were running a chemical recipe 4,000 years ago. That is not makeup, that is early pharmaceutical science. But now I have to be honest with you, because this is where the word deadly really earns its keep. Lead is poison. There is no safe amount of it. And that warning is still printed on products today. Health agencies still warn about traditional Kohl and similar products like Kajal and Surma, because they are still used in parts of Africa, the Middle East, Pakistan, and India, and they still contain lead. Lead exposure can cause anemia, kidney damage, and serious neurological damage. And in high amounts, it can even cause seizures or death. Even at low levels, it can harm children's learning and behavior, which is why applying it to babies is so dangerous. So, here is the honest truth. The Egyptians were using a toxic metal to protect their eyes, and it probably did protect them, but it also probably harmed them. There was no perfect choice. The sun was trying to blind them. The flies were trying to infect them, and the only shield they had was made of lead. So they took the shield and lived with the cost. And honestly, that is what makes this story so human. Ancient people were not dumb. They were observing their world, experimenting, and solving problems with the tools they had. They noticed that people who wore kohl seemed to have healthier eyes, and they doubled down on it for thousands of years. So the next time you see an ancient Egyptian with those bold black eyes, remember what you are looking at. Sunglasses, insect repellent, an immune booster, and a chemical factory running on a 4,000-year-old recipe, all wrapped up in one of the most beautiful beauty looks ever created.